Hey, folks have been asking us why we named the journal the Pierian, and it's a great opportunity for us to share with you a little bit about our mission.
We didn't just do it to make ourselves hard to pronounce. In fact, the Pierian Springs are one of a couple of spots usually associated with the Muses in ancient Greece. And today, the word muse might make you think of music, or of someone who inspires an artist or even a fashion designer. In ancient Greece, most of the Muses were goddesses of poetry. Their shrines in the mountains were places of divine inspiration.
That's right. We wanted to build a magazine that allows poets and readers to recenter and reinvigorate themselves. Every poet undertakes their own personal odyssey of discovery, but by sharing ideas and inspiration, we hope to make these journeys more productive and more fun.
Inspiration can come from supernatural sources, but poets also find it for themselves in the poets have gone before. For me, I love to engage with Greeks, Romans, medieval poets, and see how they're still interpreted by poets today. But as much as I love the classics, the inspiration for our name does not come from ancient Greece or Rome.
Yeah, it's Alexander Pope, an 18th century poet, and he wrote this long poem called An Essay on Criticism. And it's famous for a lot of its witty quips, like fools rush in where angels fear to tread. And he was a really witty guy writing an era where those types of things were really, really prized. In the poem, he likens the journey of the poet scholar to that of a mountain climber, and he challenges us to drink deep or taste not the Pierian springs.
Cheers. Pope was writing during the English Renaissance, when English poets suddenly had access to translations of ancient Greek poetry like Homer and Sappho that they hadn't had access to for thousands of years. Texts that we take for granted, like Homer and Hesiod, were being made accessible in English and Latin from the middle of the 16th century forward, but it took until Pope's time for it to really become accessible.
Right, yeah. Pope was a popularizer, and he wanted to evangelize Greek poetry and hold it up as this ultimate model for what literature could accomplish. He felt appreciating Greek poetry was the game changer, not just for poets and philosophers, but for anyone looking to understand the world they live in. And on criticism, he states that nature and Homer are like one and the same thing. He calls for educated people to reconsider everything that they know according to this new science. And of course, by science, what he's really talking about is knowledge.
Scientia. It's the new technology. At that time, all the universities needed to hire Greek experts. Like today, they want to hire neuroscientists. They weren't doing it to make it easier or deeper for people to write poetry. Embracing ancient Greek culture was more like building the Sydney Opera House. It was a way to show off how cultured your country was. Today, this idea of a unified national culture makes a lot of people uncomfortable or creeped out. I think, though, that as long as we understand classics not as an actual goddess, terrible in its beauty, but as an invigorating source of inspiration, one among many, it remains really useful and even essential for writers.
Yeah, I think you're telling us an incredible amount about how we situate ourselves as admirers of ancient culture. How do you think that means in terms of starting a literary journal today? How do we move forward?
This process of rediscovery is essential to poetry. Poetry connects us to and through language and its capabilities. It helps us see our world in new ways, even when they're inspired by old ones.
Ezra Pound challenged us to make it new, but the challenge is always how? We want to engage with a new generation of poets and take name recognition out of the equation. Unlike other magazines, we're going to be reading completely anonymously, and we're not going to read the poems necessarily in the order that you submit them. We want to shuffle everything up into a big jumble of literary possibility. We don't care if you've published a lot or a little or not at all. We just want to read good poems.
If you write any kind of poetry, we hope to see your submissions. If you don't write poetry, or even if you do but you're not ready to share it with us, you can still stay in touch and connect with our mission and our poets. You can find our website at thepierian.org. We're on Twitter and Instagram at the Pierian Mag, and we have a Patreon page. Be sure to check that page out for various ways to support us, including a book club, which we'll tell you more about later.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to hearing from you.